So the words from the man himself, from his book, Mark Kobayashi-Hillary.
Just figure out how to put my microphone on. Okay. So thank you very much for coming out this evening. I know that there's a great deal of things that you could be doing in London on a Thursday evening, rather than coming to Elephant and Castle to listen to me talking about outsourcing. And I think that it's, I'd particularly like to thank my parents who are in the front row here for coming along. It's the first time that they've ever come to one of the talks that I've given, and I think that that's probably because they're concerned about the kind of people that would come out in the middle of the week to listen to me speaking. So when we have a drink afterwards, do come and say hello to them and convince them that you're kind of normal and not actually insane. So this is a book of a blog. As you probably know, you might have seen the book already. You may well know my blog, Talking Outsourcing. It came out of Computing magazine. So for the last 3 years, I've been writing this stuff in the magazine. And the book is really a collection of the stuff that I've written. And it was thanks to this guy, Brian Glick, who's the editor of Computing. He rang me up one day and said, would you like to start writing this blog? We're going to relaunch the magazine online in a much more interactive way than it was previously. And so because of Brian, this ended up being probably the most popular blog that Computing publishes. But Brian right now, as Angelica said, he's not here, so it's unfortunate that he can't sort of tell you about it himself. He's actually in Chile, and he's cycling across the entire country and raising money. It's Computer Aid?
Computer Aid,
yeah, so he's raising money at the moment for charity. Probably he's not on a bike like that, but I certainly know how he feels, because last year I was kind of bored one day, and I got on my bicycle in West London and I cycled to the Salford Lads Club just for fun, just so that I could sort of pay homage to Morrissey and the Smiths. So, what is the book about? It's a collection of blogs, like I said, and so you might ask, well, all that content, everything's there, it's already been published, it's on the internet, why would you collect it together and republish it all? It's really because once you collect all that stuff together, it reads almost like a diary. It's like a business diary of this industry, what's been going on in the industry, and you can clearly see the sort of trends, the issues and problems in the marketplace, and then also some of the future gazing as well. So quite often I'm sort of looking forwards and saying what might happen in future. Because really, if you look at the blog that I write, then it's normally, it's very personal. It's about me and what's going on and what I'm doing in the industry and that kind of stuff. It's not really, repackaged press releases, or IBM made $90 billion last year, so it's not financial, it's generally what's going on and what am I up to. So the first thing that's clearly going on is the bubble bursting and the recession that we've seen now since 2007. I mean, Philippe's a lot more au fait with this than I am, but essentially this has caused a number of problems in the marketplace. We've seen a lot of companies, because of the recession, because of what's happening in the outsourcing marketplace at the moment, there's this quick problem that's been created. On the one hand, we have companies. I realize I disrupted this one. We have a quick problem in that a lot of companies, you would assume they would start offshoring. Everyone needs to preserve cash. Everyone has to get cash and reduce their outgoings. So, you would have assumed that there would be a lot more offshoring because of the recession. And I've heard people from outsourcing suppliers giving speeches and saying, oh, the recession's a great thing. Everyone's going to want to save money, so they'll come and give us business. But at the same time, because they want to preserve money, a lot of companies are not making any spending decisions. So you see this sort of twin problem. People are holding on to cash, they're not going through change programs, they're not going through outsourcing programs. It's certainly changing recently. I mean, certainly in the last 6 months, it looks, things are a bit better. I mean, like Hilary was saying actually. But certainly the last couple of years have been very tough in the marketplace. So another thing that's happening recently is the backlash. The backlash has almost returned again. If you remember about 6 years ago, 5 years ago, this was constant. You know, there was some front pages talking about jobs vanishing to India. There was a Channel 4 documentary, dispatches about buying data from people in India. You know, the call center workers will sell you data on people's credit card details and that. You know, and it all went away. You know, we saw that particularly around the time of the last Bush election. Then it vanished for a while, and it's sort of come back now because of the recession. But it's interesting because a lot of the companies now are much smarter. So, you know, you're not seeing the same kind of offshoring, particularly in customer services, for example. So, British Telecom is a good example. You know, they're shifting a lot of their call center workers back to the UK. You know, clearly it makes them look like a responsible employer in the middle of a recession. But also, where you've got that very personal, high-touch connection with the consumer, you want to have a local person, let's face it. But this guy here, he's actually sitting in Cairo, in Egypt, arranged by these guys up there. My photograph, I mean. I went over to Egypt earlier this year, took a photo of this guy. He's supporting the Xbox. So it's a very different type of call and call center. If I've got a problem with my Xbox or my Apple Mac or something, when I call that number to get help, normally all I care about is the technical competence of the person answering the phone, rather than where they pick up the phone. So people are changing and becoming more mature about the type of stuff that they move to other countries. And of course that brings us back to home as well, because there is definitely a trend towards a lot of nearshoring. There's quite a few different Indian companies, for example, that have been setting up shop in Northern Ireland. So they're able to offer, you know, their services, their expertise, but you can get the people much closer to home. And then Africa. Africa is a place that you know, a lot of people misunderstand it. It's a dark continent. It's pretty dark there actually. But we've seen the marketplace developing in South Africa particularly. Everyone has seen the call center market in South Africa develop. But you know, there's many African countries that have got all the ingredients that they need to actually make high-tech services work. I mean, you know, you need people, a lot of people, I mean, generally young people, highly educated, flexible, and the entrepreneurs to run the companies, and supportive governments. I mean, sure, there's a few governments you wouldn't want to deal with in Africa, but there's also many very stable countries. And it really wouldn't surprise me if you start seeing a lot more companies from places like Uganda, Kenya, and Ghana pitching for business in the IT and services space. And it's probably true that next year, a lot of people are really going to be paying a lot of attention to Africa for the World Cup. So, BRICS. Again, this was another economic theory that was put forward, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago. The investment bank Goldman Sachs roadshow report that was often quoted, that in the 21st century, these are really the only 4 countries to watch. I mean, these are going to be the powerhouses, and will steamroller past the dominance that we've seen the United States enjoy for the past century or so. So it's Brazil, Russia, India, China. I think that we should maybe look at them in reverse order, but I'm just focusing my attention only on the sort of IT and services industry. I mean, if you want to look at the economic potential for each of these regions, then you probably should ask Philippe. So.